All right, Chelsea fans, welcome back to another episode. That's right, the London is Blue podcast. Hopefully, your favorite Chelsea podcast out there and a part of the Men in Blazers Media Network. And we are coming to you to do a podcast episode that people love or that people hate or people use to make fun of us about 30 minutes after we release it. It is our season.
That last one's it. Yeah.
As Nick would indicate, our season prediction episode. That's right. We're going to be running through our predictions about where Chelsea are going to finish at the end of the 2024-2025 Premier League campaign, their domestic campaigns, their international campaigns, who those impact players are going to be, maybe who that new defense, dark arts master is, and a bunch of other categories that we have come to know and love in this episode. But Brandon, as we talk about this, I mean, there have been hits, there's been misses. Is this the year that you go and do not have the big blank?
The problem is that it's a trap episode because you could put Cole Palmer for a lot of things, but it feels like that would be too easy and maybe too many eggs in one basket. So probably not, Dan. Probably no redemption.
As I was going through this, I don't know if you guys did the same thought exercise. You're like, who am I jinxing right now as hard as So I spread it out. I did a job to not overload in one possible area as to limit the damage that could possibly happen from this one episode.
Or to spread it out into the entire squad.
That's good. The Verlaine pathogen has been particulated across. So
just what I need.
We're going to talk about a lot of things. First thing that we want to do, because we've been doing a lot of experimentation this summer, so an admin programming note on just what you can expect from us this season in terms of things that we've been doing a little bit differently. Obviously, we've been doing more YouTube lives. We've been doing more shorts. We've been experimenting on there. So, Nick, why don't you run the good people, the wonderful listeners, the amazing community, the people who will celebrate with us, who will suffer with us this season through the highs and lows of Chelsea Football Club. What are we going to be doing for them this year?
Yeah, I think first, just thanks to the community and so many of our collaborators for helping us get through this summer. We've all taken vacations, which has been nice, and obviously Brandon has a wee one at home, and so he's been doing a lot of that, and so it's been nice to kind of get a smidgen of a break. We have now been doing this show for 10 years. 10 years. 2014, in August, we started this. So it's kind of a special anniversary for us, which is really cool. We are moving to a new programming schedule, and I think it's just important. We'll say this multiple times, so if you missed this episode, whatever, we'll make sure that it's out there. But we're going to move to kind of a 3-2 model. So a podcast scheduled on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays through this season. We were producing like 5-6 pods a week for a lot of last season, and it just got to the point where, one, the news wasn't getting any better, and two, there was just a lot of stuff that we thought we could cover in different ways, and so I think that's going to be part of what we do. The 2 of the 3-2 model is largely our YouTube-specific content, and like Dan just said, we've been really focused on YouTube as a platform, as a way to help us grow. Podcast is still number one priority, and it's something that we are deeply passionate about. We all love audio, but YouTube has been a source of growth for us, and I think somewhere where we can have a more nuanced conversation than somewhere like Twitter or Instagram or TikTok, and so YouTube's been really good to us, and so we just want to call that out. Monday, Wednesday, Friday pods, Tuesday, Thursday videos, maybe some extra videos on there, and we're doing a lot of promotion of those videos. The YouTube content is going to be really interesting, though, because I think it's going to be shorter form. So if you don't have a full 50, 60-minute pod in you, 20 minutes, 15 minutes, it's going to be a little more snackable. We're going to move some of our previous pod content over to YouTube this year. Chelsea women's pods, youth updates, match previews sometimes, special interviews, all the sorts of stuff that you were used to hearing in the feed will largely be moved onto YouTube, and we will call out kind of when that happens. You've noticed that we've been doing more YouTube lives recently. So we'll call these out too, but for weekend matches where there's a suitable time slot, we really like going live on YouTube now. I think we've kind of done okay with it, and we'll
built a muscle.
To get better. Yeah,
we built a muscle, Nick.
We'll continue to get better at that. But The YouTube live will then be the Monday episode. So if you love the Monday episode, you'll just hear the YouTube live in audio format, tailored for that platform. And look, I think just the overall thing here, guys, is like we want to bring you the best perspectives and the freshest content that we can this year. And there's going to be a ton of matches. There's going to be European nights, TM, back on the schedule. Those will then be your Friday match reviews in your feed, right? Because those are going to happen on Thursdays. We're going to have Carabao Cup. We're going to have FA Cup. We're going to have a ton of Chelsea women's updates this summer. It's so much. And we're just now at the end of transfer season. So that, we're trying to get through August. But that's the reason for all this. And we just thought we owe you a little bit of conversation at the beginning, Dan, because it's important that we showcase where we're going to be and when we're going to be there so that people can know what to expect.
Yeah, and let us know what you like, what you don't like. Are you enjoying it? Are you not enjoying it? You can leave comments on the YouTube videos. If you haven't subscribed, we're getting close to 35,000. It wasn't too long ago that we were at 30,000, and that's been really, really cool to watch grow over this summer. Shout out to producer Jake, who has learned YouTube thumbnails, has figured out the game. If you haven't seen them yet, you're really just doing a disservice to yourself to not get a chance to enjoy that. He's Steph Curry at the end of the U.S. men's basketball team game there. That's what he's doing. He's the chef. And then we'll send out a survey too that we'll put on the socials to get a little bit more feedback as we kind of continue to evolve this content. And then, I think lastly, just as kind of life changes occur across the show, across kind of our production, I know, Brandon, you're going to have a little less of a role this season, not, larger impact per opportunity. You're going to be the impact sub of the three, I think, this year.
Yeah, for sure. Look, obviously with the birth of our son, William, things have gotten a heck of a lot busier, all for the good. So what I talked to the guys was it is really hard for me to squeeze in all of these episodes. So instead of burdening them and making scheduling more difficult, I'm going to step back. I'll be on less pods. You'll still hear me. I'm definitely going to be on the YouTube, trying to do as much as I can there to support the group. So don't worry. I'm not going anywhere. Hopefully this is a temporary thing. It's just easier for me to not overcommit myself and let you down, the listeners, Nick and Dan. So don't be alarmed, but it will be a little bit different, which just means more voices will be on the pod. I'm still around. Feel free to hit me up. I'm on the socials, far less, but I'm still around. So we'll keep the positivity flying. Excited to support in a different way this season.
And I would just quickly say too, as we go through the beginning of this season and everything's kind of fresh and new, producer Jake has been killing it on all angles for us and needs your love. He's been doing an incredible job. CFC Central's been doing an incredible job on the newsletter and so many pod appearances, all the scouting, all this sort of stuff. If there are contributors that you want to see join the ranks because you think they would embolden what we do, great. We'll take that in the survey. But we're still working at it. Year 10, season 11, still getting better, still refining what we do. And so, we don't do a whole lot of self promotion on this podcast. We largely just dive right into these topics. But it's something that we thought we owed the dear listener as we head into the start of the Premier League season. And just thanks for everything so far, guys. It's been an incredible run for us.
Yeah, I mean, this is, the point where that whiskey or that bourbon is getting really good at 10 years. So just imagine another 10 years from now how that's going to taste.
Sure,
but look,
sure
we're
is.
going to get into those predictions, those previews, what we're prognosticating for Chelsea's season. And we're going to start at the very, very top, which is just league performance and total points. And if we kind of take a look back to last season, Chelsea finished 6th in the table on 63 points. That's right, 63 points. Was able to get you 6th last season. Don't know if that's going to be the case this year. And what we did is last season, we also put it in the ranges. So we're not saying what range did you need to predict, like our exact spot, but are we going to be top 4? Are we going to be top 6, top half, or lower half? And so we'll kind of run through, because I think we're kind of in the same spot mostly, but not, it's like a Venn diagram overlap here.
Look, if we were betting, right, like we would have a good spread here. So
yes.
That's kind of how I see it. Dan, you put top 6. I put 5-6 specifically. I don't really see us getting Champions League next season again. I don't think we're forgetting, or there's going to be so much change to this roster still. So like the team we see today in front of us, I know Nick, you did the video. It's like, this isn't who it's going to be. So I think that's why I'm very hesitant, Dan, to even think about Champions League, because there's a lot of movements that are still going to happen. You get players like Renato Vega who just got in, and we still don't really know what they have to bring to the table. So I'm being very cautious.
I think 5 to 6 is fair. I think if it is in the top 6, it's somewhere between 4 to 6 and not 1 to 3. So I think there is a fair element there. Look, I think your City and Arsenal are going to be just continue to be a step above the rest. And then you have a couple who have been in the conversation. If they get a couple of good transfers right, if their managers are able to embed new ideas early, there's an opportunity to advance. Other teams potentially taking a step back, being in European competition. So I think that's why I feel there's an opportunity still. But I know, Nick, you're a little bit more on the we'll finish top half type of the conversation.
Yeah, look, I'm not feeling great about this right now. I don't think that will be a surprise to anyone. I've been called worse, so whatever you're preparing in the comments, just feel free. I have us in the 7 to 10 range. I think that might be generous right now. If for whatever reason we decided that we were going to get even younger this year and less experienced in a lot of ways, and are missing. They're going to miss some key contributors who helped us get up to 6 last season, and so I don't think the squad is markedly better today than it was at the end of last season. I think there's a lot of future prospects. Obviously, a couple coming out of South America that we're pretty hyped about for next year, and maybe even someone like Guiu, who could be a future, 3-4 years down the road, sort of like everyday striker, but. In terms of like the thing that is right in front of your face, it's going to be a big Premier League season complemented with a Conference League, Europa Conference League, that is going to make our Thursday, Sunday rotation pretty standard throughout the year. And so I think it's just going to be really challenging for this team to get any ground in the league. And if there is a slow start, which I'm concerned about, then that just means it puts pressure on every subsequent match. As we saw last year, we had a slow start and then we had to really go on a tear, 3, 4, 5 wins in a row in chunks to get anywhere close to the top 6. And so that's my rationale. I'm sticking to it. And, I hope everyone's laughing at Nicholas Fellaini at the end of this season going, what a fool. Well,
look, I like Liverpool, new manager. Tottenham, they got 5th, but they really fell off at the end of the season. Newcastle.
Still Tottenham, damn it.
Newcastle has some financial issues, so they're going to have to sell a big player. Manchester United sticking with Ten Hag, and so can they improve? Otherwise, you had Aston Villa, who surprised everybody. West Ham and Palace were up and amongst it until the end when they fell out again. So, Liverpool, I think, is the big bogey team. And then United, Newcastle, Tottenham, Chelsea, we're all going to kind of be fighting for maybe 4 through 6 to see how it goes.
West Ham's much better, though. I mean, they got much better this season.
That's it, right? So just to that point, we could be surprised again by one of those other ones. So it'll be interesting. I think pretty hard to, I think, anyone be real confident in top 4. That's I think the safe bet, no doubt.
So as that translates to total points that Chelsea will pick up this season, I think they thought that we'd pay is in the over 70 points, 65 to 69 points, 60 to 64 points, or less than 59 points. And again, relative to the league positions we picked, with a top 6 finish, I went with 65 to 69 points, which would be improved from the 63 Chelsea had last season. Brandon, I think you're looking at like smack dab in the middle of where we kind of performed last season, maybe a little bit of a drop off. And Nick, you're just a little further behind, but not by too much in terms of season over season reduction.
One thing I would say about this is just looking at the table last year, and I think we could all admit it was a weird Premier League last year, right? It was very middle heavy as compared to previous seasons when it can really get separated into halves. Like you had basically Villa, Tottenham, Chelsea, Newcastle, United, and West Ham within 12 points of each other, and that basically filled out the rest of the top 10. And then basically from 10 until 16, there was a split of 10 points. And so within 22 points, which I know is a lot of points, but you basically had every team last season in that middle ground. And Chelsea finished on 63, sure. But, you anticipate that, I have them at 59 or lower right now just due to my table position. That's essentially where United finished on 60 in 8th place last year. I think that's basically what, like if you're looking at points, to Brandon's earlier point, I don't know if the league is going to be markedly better.
Yeah.
But I do think that maybe the top separates itself more earlier than it did last season, which was, a little different.
Yeah, I just averaged last three seasons. Honestly, we're at 60 points. 44 was the low, a couple seasons ago. Yeah, exactly. And I think our high was, I don't know. It obviously had to have been like close to 70 or whatever, but overall not good. And so it's like, hey, I think we're going to be more of the same. So that at least that's my rationale. There's no emotion in it whatsoever. It's pure mathematical, just averaging out the last 3 seasons under the Blue Co banner.
And that would get you top 6.
Potentially. Yeah.
Probably.
Well, fingers crossed for that at minimum, but we're going to take our first ad break. When we get back, we're going to talk about what type of silverware Chelsea may or may not get this season in, as well as other categories too. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, so domestic and international cup performance. So we got to add the international one back after getting into and backdooring into the Conference League. So being back in Europe, getting Thursday night matches means that we get to expand this category a little bit from last year. Last year we had the FA Cup semifinal, we had a League Cup final. Chelsea obviously did not win either of those. So no silverware to speak of, and we had all said win one, or I think I said actually win none, deep run. So I guess I somehow won that, but I don't feel good about it. This season, Brandon, what do you think is going to happen? You added another one in there, which I was not thinking of. I technically was thinking about that maybe as like 2025, 26, but
yeah, maybe I'll just get ahead of it. It's like, I don't see it happening, right? And I actually pulled Maresca's trophies. So like as a player, won the Serie A, the Supercopa, in Spain, won a few trophies. So like, hey, definitely as a player, his won trophies. As a manager, he won the PL2 with Man City, and then obviously won the championship with Leicester. Good news is that's him succeeding over a long period of time. Great. That is important. But we're not going to win the league in the next 2 seasons, I don't think. So that means how is he going to do in a cup competition? It's all going to come down to his playing experience, less so his managing. So I think it's hard to see us winning a cup trophy this season. What I want, though, is the Club World Cup if I could pick one, because that is so rare and hard to get that I would snag that if I could pick one.
Okay. I would like to see us go deep in these competitions. I think as we learned last year, right? There is a significant difference between getting to a final and winning a final. And, that is a unfortunate bit of lessons learned that we're going to have to apply to this season. I think we are likely going to be in a position, as much as we've talked about, 70 matches and all this sort of stuff. I think the deeper you get in, let's say January through May, and the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup and the Conference League and the Premier League, and you're fighting on multiple fronts, right? I know we have a ginormous squad right now, but like you're fighting on all these fronts. You have less experience in a lot of ways of winning than you had in previous years. It's going to take something really special. And I think there will also be some prioritization that happens of, if we are deep in all these cups, like which ones are we really, really going for? And, where are we in the league at whatever points? Because that might impact us too if we're really back in the league and the FA Cup can help get us into Europa League next year or something, then we'll prioritize the FA Cup, right? Like there's a bunch of different things here. I don't think we'll win any, but I do think we'll go on a fair amount of deep runs. It may not be the Carabao Cup. It may be the FA Cup or the Europa Conference League or whatever the case might be. It's hard for me to see W's at the end of those.
Yeah, I think if we win anything, it's the Conference League, and I'm 50-50 on that. I think we're getting those first couple of matches a little too early for comfort, and I think that is a huge question mark. That is the type of competition that the Chelsea should go out and win, and I think it's going to be a little bit of an embarrassment if we can't do it. But I'm going to go 51%, 49. I'm going to give it the margin of error here and say that we do end up winning the Conference League, which I guess gets us a minimum bid into Europa League in the following year. So that way we don't have to worry about the league position as much. Let's shift gears, though. Young player of the season. No surprise. Last year, it was Cole Palmer in both categories, but we recorded our preview before we signed him. So to be fair to us, it was really hard to judge that one. This year, we get the benefit of knowing Cole Palmer is a Chelsea player. So
yes.
And then young player of the season is 23 or younger at the start of the season. And I think we've kind of always operated in the sense that if the player of the season is under 23, you usually pick another player for young player of the season. You don't give the award to both awards to the same player.
Yeah, I'm cheating. Pure cheat. I could not get past these two names, but I'll throw an alternate at you just for shits and giggles. I think Palmer is going to win player of the season. Massive shock, I know. Wow, what a huge reach from Nick here. And then young player of the season is Malo Gusto. I think he's going to end up playing a lot more than anyone's really anticipating right now. We're recording this off the back of the news that Reece James has done his hamstring again. Severity unknown, but we're in this position again where Malo Gusto is probably going to play a lot of football this year. If he can stay healthy, he'll be incredible. Depending on what the hell happens with our striker situation, though, let me throw Mark Guiu at you for potentially a young player of the season, because who the hell knows? Maybe he stays. Maybe I look like an idiot at the very end of this sentence. It's a real gamble. But Palmer and Gusto I feel really good about, and those are going to be my picks.
I just like that Brandon in his selection is going back to back in his guy. Back in his guy.
Let's go.
Wait. Your young player of the season is older than your player of the season. Correct. I just want to put that out there.
Correct.
But still fits the rules.
They both make the criteria, though, my friend.
Interesting. What a squad we have. Yeah, I run it back in Nkunku and Colwill. They both had injuries that probably prevented them from doing some of that. But I think that, again, assuming they're healthy, Colwill's already getting a lot of minutes early on in a role that actually suits him, not at left back. So yeah, I think if he can stay healthy all season, he'll collect that quite easily. He looks so good. He looks so mature. His frame looks even better this season. Like, I'm excited for Levi. So, but Dan, I obviously called Nick out for being younger. I love how your young player of the season is 100 million pounds.
So player of the season with Palmer, even with the regression season over season, like he still, okay, sorry, maybe he only has 40 goal contributions across all competitions instead of 50. Wow, man, that's such a step back. I went with young player season, though, Moises Caicedo, who at time of recording is 22, approaching 23. And I think we didn't see like a really great Moises Caicedo in the first half of the season. At the end of last season, we were like, oh man, like we got the value here. Like, this is a guy who is worth it. Like, we're still having conversations about like, are we getting the maximum return on like Enzo Fernandez for like what his fee was? I don't think a lot of us were asking many questions about Moises Caicedo and the fee at the very end of the season. And so I feel like he is midfielder number one at the moment. I think he will stay midfielder number one as long as he's healthy throughout the entirety of the season. I think he's going to be a massive contributor, and he's going to be asked to do a lot as Maresca tries to figure out a bunch of other stuff. So I think he's going to be pretty integral.
It's hard to argue. I think he's going to be great. I kept him for another one because player of the season typically goes to attackers, but hey, let's see how it shakes out.
Oh, Conte's won it before, right? Like, so like, to be fair,
you have a lot of options in the squad that could make this criteria. Let's be very clear. Like,
yes,
I think over half the squad would be eligible for either one of these awards. So, yeah,
it's like the goalkeepers can't qualify, but everybody else can. So as we go to Chelsea's Golden Boot and leader in assist last season, no surprise, it was Cole Palmer. And look, Brandon and I are in the Cole Palmer boat for both of these, though I think you were caveating appropriately, Brandon, that if he's on penalties, it is Cole Palmer. If it's not, it's going to be Nkunku.
Correct. You read what would you like me to add? That was my statement. Dan wrote. Yeah, I think that penalties is huge. This team drew a lot of penalties last season. Cole Palmer buried a lot of penalties. So if Cole retains it, which why wouldn't he? But again, it's Enzo Maresca's team. He might just shake things up, shake it up. I think that'd be a little bit silly, but that's how I read it. Penalties is going to be big for whoever is going to be the Golden Boot. Yeah,
I'm a little different on this than I thought I was going to be when I got to this one, because your instinct is obviously to go to Palmer, and I think the penalties thing might screw up my case anyway, but I'll go with it. I think Nkunku is going to get back to scoring some goals this year, and he may be on the receiving end of some Palmer assists. And so I have Nkunku as the Golden Boot. I have Palmer as the leading assister. Just the way the system is played, and especially if Palmer is out on the right and Nkunku's in the middle, they're going to be kind of close to each other, and I think start to form a really great relationship. And that's really exciting to me. Plus, Nkunku with Jackson in front of him potentially, or a striker to be named later, who fucking knows, is really exciting in terms of total contributions as well. So yeah, I'm really intrigued by Christopher Nkunku this year. I hope he's healthy and he's able to play a bunch, and we get that all comps number just skyrocketing, and we have a bunch of goals.
We have most improved player, which is a little different from comeback player. We kind of put these back to back for that reason. Most improved would be they typically had a good season, but they're going to take a real big step up in this coming season. And then we have comeback player of the year, which is typically a player that was injured or out for a sustained period of time for other reasons. And they get an opportunity to come back and be an impact player within the side. As we look at it, though, we actually all went across the board here. There's no consensus when it came to most improved player. I think, Nick, you went with one that I think is going to be a little bit of a lightning rod. You either love him or you hate him. I think more people are loving him, though, starting this season.
My pick is just on a hot streak right now, and I think that hot streak continues into this season. There's no better vibe than being a European champion heading into the start of a Premier League season, and I think Marc Cucurella will cement himself at left back. I think his overall performances from last year to this year will take a step up, especially if he's asked to invert, which is something that we think saw him have some success with at the end of last season. And so I think we could be looking at Cucurella by the end of this season, a sentence that I never thought that I would utter in my life, as a really integral part of Chelsea, and a player that, if we do have a big game in the Premier League or in the Conference League or whatever, some sort of final, that is an automatic starter.
He's just been inconsistent. I think that's the hard part, but we saw a glimpse right at the end of the last season of what he potentially could be. New manager, fresh start. Let's see how it goes. I'm forcing this, that it has to be Mudryk or Madueke. I think one of them could still leave on loan, balance the squad, but it has to be, because if it's not, then I think that the road is over for these guys. There needs to be tangible progress this season, because the patience, I think there's less with Mudryk than Madueke, is going to go to essentially zero. The fans aren't going to get behind them. The club's going to have a hard time justifying the spend. So no pressure. Love them both. Would love to see them both light it up. But one of them has to show up. We need one of them this season.
No pressure, but you must do much better.
Yeah, they're not going to listen to me. It's just I'm hoping it's we need it, right? It just glimpses and flashes, but the product, the full Premier League product hasn't been there. So yeah, I'm hoping for it.
I'm kind of surprised. I thought with you going young player of the season for Levi Colwill that he was going to be your most improved player here as well. And that's who I went with. Because, we saw him, unfortunately, a lot at left back last season. I think we're going to see him in a center back role for the majority of this season. Hopefully we're not seeing him at left back for a long period of the season. That just would say that we're having a lot of other squad problems that are going to cause headaches for Maresca and for supporters. So I think he is in the individual that I would look to as potentially an opportunity for a big step up for him this season, particularly after he had that really great loan spell at Brighton, comes back with a lot of potential, ends up playing left back, gets knocked out for some injuries, doesn't get that opportunity to start as much later into the season, and now is an opportunity, seemingly as an opportunity to be one of the guys and be the guy in that back line. So big opportunity for him. But for comeback player,
well, I was going to say real quick, the only concern, and not to like play this card, he's next up on the sale list. Unfortunately, the way the trends are going, he's next up on the old sale list, unfortunately, because he's been at Cobham since he was a kid.
I wouldn't get too attached to any one player on the roster right now. Just being really honest about that, because I think you're going to start to see all sorts of shenanigans.
Except the ones you hate. Those are the ones you should get attached to.
Yeah. They'll be here forever.
As we look at comeback player, we had players like Reece James, Ben Chilwell, and Armando Broja last season. Boy, oh boy, none of those panned out as our predictions. So let's hope we can get a little bit better this season and actually sprinkle some good luck on some players. Brandon and I went with Wes Fofana, and Nick Verlani went with Christopher Nkunku. I think both of those are great options. If both of them, to be fair, are in conversation for comeback player of the season at the end of the season, we might have had a really, really great season.
Yeah, we're in a good spot. I think Wes coming off of basically 2 straight years of being injured, and Nkunku coming off a year and a half of being injured. It may seem like cheating. If you're listening to this, you're like, oh, well, these are the 2 most obvious options. Like, I tried putting Lavia in here. I don't know. I don't know if he's going to play enough to really qualify. Nkunku has to get in there this year. He has to do something. He's already shown in preseason he's on some pretty good form. He's not even 100% fit yet. I don't think Wes is 100% fit yet either. If these guys, let's call it October, just for argument's sake. If by October these guys are really rounding in to form and they're able to do what no Chelsea team has done in many years, which is have a decent December. We have struggled in December for a while. Then there's something to talk about in terms of like, where are we in the league table? Where are we here? But if they're injured or they start slow again, it's compound.
I mean,
yeah,
makes sense.
This is the problem that we've had consistently. More new faces in the medical department again. So how quickly is this group going to gel? Maresca's trainings, all these different things. Like, we'll see. I don't think there's any heavy minutes in preseason. I think they kept it to a minimum, pretty even across the board, which is obviously smart. Although Reece James already down before the season yet again. So that's always been the concern the last few seasons. And we went on such a rich run of no issues whatsoever. And now we have all the issues. So
none of us dared put Reece James here, which I think is smart. Well done to all of us for doing the exact right thing here. I think obviously Dan's pick from last season really screwed up everything. And so we've all taken the high road here and elected to let Reece just recover and be back to his best.
Look, that is all we can hope for. We could switch gears, though. Lone Star Hero, which is our kind of best loanee. And again, not all the loans have been put together, so there's a little bit of some guesswork here. But I think the 3 of us did go with players who are already out on loan, one of which has already played for the team that they're on loan for and seemingly had a very good debut in that. I think, Nicky, you and I went with Alfie Gilchrist, and Brandon went with Andre Santos. I guess, Nick, in terms of Alfie, is it about where he's playing, the opportunity he's going to get? Why did you pick him?
I mean, one, I think he's going to love the championship. He's a physical guy. He's a little undersized, but he loves getting stuck in. We saw the fire last season. He's a player that I like, so inevitably the club will try and sell him very soon. So I just hope he has a really great season for him. Like that, I'm more rooting for him out of just like advancing his career, and whatever chips fall on the table. He is a really, really great kid by all accounts. And I think Sheffield United is lucky to have him after their defense leaked 90 some goals last year, 100 goals. Like, hard to go hard to go down from there. So I'm excited for Alfie and really hope that he just has an absolutely wonderful season in the championship and brings himself back to Cobham next summer.
Yeah, he's only 20. He's playing right back. They played a 4-4-1-1 against Preston. So what is also good is it's pushing him out of that center back role, which he's not the right height for, maybe in a back three. So anyways, it seems like a really good lineup for him. Look, I went with Santos. I said he's the closest to the first team player that we have. Yep. Also, he's going back to a club where he's seen success, but a different manager because, well, it's the Blue Co way. So we'll see.
I guess technically you could have also gone with some of the other players in South America that we were signing to and are technically on loan. But I think we went with more of the actual letter of the law versus the spirit. So well done for the three of us again. As we look at the next one, Iron Man, sorry, Marvel, most minutes played in this.
This was
Conor Gallagher last season soaked it up, over 4,000 minutes across all competitions. Very impressive.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course we're going to sell that guy. In the season where we have more matches. That makes a shit ton of sense. This was actually really challenging to put together because of all the matches and all the different like permutations of lineups that you could do. The only guy who I could come up with who will, I guess doesn't have a huge injury record, knock on wood, and will be integral to any success that we have this season is Cole Palmer. And so I'm putting Cole Palmer down. He played basically once he got into the lineup last year, he didn't leave the lineup. I anticipate that being the same this season. And I think he has shown, because his game is not built on physical speed and all that sort of stuff, he doesn't need to exert himself as much as some others who rely on that. He's more in his bag of tricks. So I got Cole Palmer as the Iron Man this year.
I mean, there's the smartest man I know, who's Brandon Busby, who also selected Moises Caicedo. So I feel like that's probably a really handsome answer from him.
I think the part with Moises, or Moy, as I like to call him.
Yeah, you guys are friends, huh?
Lavia is a bit defensive minded, but I feel like he's actually closer to like an 8 where he wants to get box to box. So then you're kind of like, well, there's, you can't imagine Leslie's going to stick around, so he'll go on loan. It's like he's the only one that does it. At the end of the day, you usually need someone to shield the back line. So
your boy Leslie's going to start at 8, man. He's going to score a bunch of goals this year.
2 preseason goals. I mean, look, performance warrants it, but you just imagine, we'll have to see. But I think Caicedo has a little bit of position protection in that sense, where like no one else really does what he does within the squad. So he's going to have to almost play by default when like Enzo's going to be rested. Like Caicedo will still be in, unfortunately.
You could make the argument though, and I think this is something that like as we have started to analyze the squad as it's been assembled, and boy is it being assembled and taken apart and reassembled, we don't really have a number 6 in the squad. We don't. Caicedo's not really a number 6 in the traditional like deep lying destroyer set. Like he's just not a John Obi Mikel type. He's much more active than that, much more box to box than that. And so it's going to be fascinating to see what they cook up in this midfield and how they get it to maximize. I would agree that he is a crucial component. Is he able to stand up to what Connor did last season? Play a whole bunch of roles over a whole bunch of games and stay healthy. That is going to be the critical, thing.
Well, look, we're going to get our last ad break out of the way, but when we come back, we're going to talk about the Master of the Dark Arts, who those super subs are going to be, and get to the coveted, the all-time awarded 3-word season prediction to close out this episode. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, so we're talking super sub. Who's going to be the best or most impactful sub last season? From last season, it was players like, I kind of wanted to put Malagusto, and maybe give us some credit for that one, but he also started more frequently,
way more.
Yeah. So initially I thought Reece James will be healthy. And so he's going to get, 50% of his minutes will probably be as a substitute. No, only 30% of his minutes were as a substitute. So at the moment it shifts from a 50%, you have to kind of pull it out and say we're done. This is not in consideration anymore.
Our answers from last year are fucking hilarious.
If only we knew.
No, we knew nothing.
A little bit of what was coming, it would have been a completely different game.
You were the closest with Madueke, I think. That was Brandon. I think that was probably that one goes to you.
Came good at the end of the season. Came real good at the end of the season.
I had Carnes who played 2 games. I had no chance. So yeah, wow. We're just tough spot.
Look, it was a long run.
Can I make just a broad? Can I get some consensus here? I picked 2 because I'm not sure who is going to potentially leave the club by the end of the window. Can we have 2 options on this one and just leave ourselves some wiggle room to finally get this right?
I love it. Let's do it.
I went with either
Conor Gallagher.
Correct.
Or Trevo.
Yeah.
Well, burn both your options. That sucks anyways.
I went with either Raheem Sterling because I think he is potentially not in the race for starter much anymore, or Kieran Dewsbury Hall. I think there is a KDH super sub for Enzo sort of thing that can happen very frequently this year, and I feel pretty good about Dewsbury Hall. Watch him start every game now and just throw my prediction absolutely out the window. But I see him more as a second string / super sub option than I do a starter at the start of the year.
Brandon, you and I had the same one, but did you have a different second one? We both had Madueke.
Yeah. So look, if you want something crazy, there's only, I think this is true. Let me double check this before I put it out where I can't take it back.
Yeah, we'd hate for you to do that.
Okay, so Cole Palmer is listed in 2 positions as an attacking midfielder and winger. Mm-hmm. The other player that has 2 positions that's not – okay, there's a couple of defenders. Never mind. This kind of blows it. But Renato Veiga, and here's why. Because he's defender / midfielder. And if he can cook like Malo did when he came in – when you were talking about that number 6, Nick, immediately I didn't want to say it, but I was like, I wonder if Veiga would be someone who could potentially, knowing Enzo style anyways, slot into that 6 and just play as another defender / midfielder in transition as well. So we haven't really seen much, but based on his profile and what I've read and kind of looking at the McLaughlin app, because he's got 6 different radars, because he's been a fullback, a center back, a midfielder, all these different positions. He just might surprise us.
That's a very sneaky pick. Very sneaky.
Yeah, he pulled that one out of nowhere.
He will now go on loan.
Yeah. I almost think it has to be one of the attackers who is not a starter with Neto coming in, with Jackson being back, with Nkunku being there, Palmer being there.
Say it, Dan. Joao Felix. Say it.
No,
Say it, Dan.
We're not going there. We're not going there at this point. It's 9:53 p.m. on Sunday, August 11th when we're recording this, and I think all of us had dinner interrupted with multiple WhatsApp messages about the failing of the Samu deal and then the Joao Felix rumors. So we're going to move off of that one. I think Sterling is probably the best second shout because I just see there's no way that he is leaving, and that is I know it's a bold statement. I had Madueke, so it's like one of Madueke or Sterling. One of them probably leaves. I don't think it's Sterling, though.
Doug, I love how we're at the very beginning of this. We know absolutely nothing, and then we made such concrete. He's definitely not going to leave. Yeah, he's leaving tomorrow now.
So domestic banana peel, we've done this. Who trips us up? Who is that foe in the Premier League who just gives us a little bit too much, turns our heads upside down? And last season it was Wolves with 2 losses at a 6-3 aggregate scoreline. No points from Wolves, which is a pretty embarrassing thing. But you know what? That's why we signed Pedro Neto. Done.
Honestly, that's why I didn't put them. I was like, oh yeah, it'll be Wolves. I'm sure, Gary O'Neill's still doing his thing, whatever. But I was like, no, we can't run it back. That's too easy. And so I did something stupid. I was like, what about Bournemouth? Right? I feel like, they were, I think 12th last season. Yeah, 12th. They've continued to sign. They're signing someone from Barcelona. They are losing Dom Solanke, it looks like, which is obviously a huge miss for them. But Yeah, I think they could be our annoying team this coming season.
I have a complaint about Dan's. I think spirit of the rule here is that domestic banana peel can't be one of the top 4 teams in the league.
Okay, fair. I'll make a change on mine. That's fine. All right. I got no problem with that.
I see you, Aston Villa.
What?
I see your pick. I went
team
with
that finished higher than us last season is my pick.
So,
Manchester City.
Yeah. Wow, they're real banana
The most
peel.
devious team.
Those bastards.
Those devious bastards. Yeah. I went with Brentford. This system and the way they play, I think they're going to absolutely hit us on the counter over and over and over again. It's going to be tough.
I mean, they
Cool.
got 16th last season, but I know Tony missed a bunch of it. But man, they fell off a cliff last season.
All right, here's a fun one. I'll pivot. I'm going to say Leicester City does the business against Enzo Maresca.
Do you think that Leicester City will be more annoying or less annoying than Brighton after we did our whole thing with RDZ?
Less. Much.
Yeah, De Zerbi being gone makes it a little. It pulls a little venom out of it. I think it's still going to have a little bit of a bite to it, but not as much as it did previously.
I think Leicester City will care a hell of a lot more than we will. Let's just put that out there.
To be fair,
Yeah.
Master of the Dark Arts. So we had players like Malagusto, Enzo Fernandez, and Reece James leveling up in that caliber. I think he was very obvious about the dark arts at the very end of the season with the red card that he picked up, Nick. So I don't know if we can count that as a win.
No, he has to prove it to me that he's back and can actually play, because you can't be a master of dark arts from the sideline, even though he did pick up some cards from the sideline last year, which is not ideal. I went with a couple sneaky ones. Again, this is just all in service of I don't know who's going to be the final squad on August 30th when the window closes, so I'm giving you a couple of safe ones. Cucurella could be a really interesting one. He started putting in some fun challenges at the end of last year. I kind of liked it. Again, never thought I'd be like bigging up Cucurella on the preview pod, but here we are. And then one that I think could be a newcomer but has a sneaky little bit to him is Pedro Neto. Pedro on the dark arts could be interesting. He does get into little scraps. He does do a little kind of gnarly falling over and pretending that he's hurt sort of thing. Like, get some players booked. I'm down. Let's do
The
it.
Cucurella one, I think it's going to be really hard to make the case for that, only because in my mind, I judge it off of, did they get away with it? Are they walking away from the scene? Like, this is the Diego Costa like vision in my mind. Like, you walked away from something that somebody else should have gotten a card for, and like
Dan. And remember in the Euros when he wasn't even tackled and he went to the ground and did the David Luiz like look through his hands sort of thing.
He had 23 fouls last season and he had 10 cards. Like the math there is not mathing for me.
I don't know.
I think Levi. That's why I'm putting forward Levi Colwell as the guy, because he had 25 fouls.
The guy who openly fought James McLean the first part of the season.
Hey, got away with it. Got away with it. There's some video.
Fucking Captain Obvious over here. I don't know if Cucurella is as sly as you're thinking. The guy punching James McLean. Unbelievable.
25 fouls, 2 cards last season. That's I'm making my premise of the case.
All right.
Yeah, maybe. I feel like he probably one of those cards was pulling someone down because he got hung out to dry and just had to stop a counterattack. Look, I just put NA. Like, I don't see it. Like, the true definition of this team, I don't see it. So instead of like shoehorning someone into this, I'm just gonna punt, because like, you gotta earn it. We've had too many good players fill this role for us to just like, grade on a massive curve.
That's fair.
I love that. I love that you're holding a high bar for the master of the dark arts position at Chelsea. Club.
We respect it. We relish it. We embrace it.
Really, really proud of you. Really. So in similar form, I think we went with the Didier Drogba Big Game Hero Award. This is who shows up when our backs are against the wall, when we need something out of nothing. And I mean, we didn't get it right last season. We had Reece James, we had Nico Jackson. We didn't have Cole Palmer as an option at the time of recording last season, but we do now. And Brandon and I went with Cole the closer in this scenario. I think that's a pretty obvious one. You went with a different name though, Nick. So I'll let you share that with the listeners.
In the spirit of the window not being closed, Victor Osimhen.
That's great.
Who will be joining Chelsea at any day now. No.
Joao Felix?
Yeah. Oh, God. Fuck off. That is crazy. All right. So I had Moises Caicedo. I think when you look at some of the bigger games at the end of last season, he showed up big in those games. And I know that it's like not as sexy to do it from midfield, but if you want to control a game, there is no better place to do it than from the midfield. And I hope that he is in that sort of form. If we get to a final, if we, are down to the last day and are competing for something, like that is a player who I think could really turn it up 3 or 4 notches and show up in a big way.
Well, I think it's the balance, right? Like you can't just rely on a goal scorer. At some point, you're going to have to defend and make a play and do something. And Caicedo is that guy to do it. The pickpocket, the last gasp tackle, the tracking all the way back. He will do that. And like I said, I think those two together are exactly the balance that you need in this team in those big matches.
So as we shift to the final category, the 3-word season predictions, are ones for last season. Brandon went with can't get worse. I went with Chelsea's aura era, and Nick went with fun but frustrating. How do we feel about last year's? I think you were right, Nick. I'm going to give you yours. You get the flowers for that one.
Thank you. I accept this.
I had a lot of thoughts. I had to write it into ChatGPT, and it crushed. Like, if you would have seen the prompt I wrote, it was like a full sentence. And I was like, but hey, you got to rewrite this in 3. And they did well. So mine, you can flex it either way, depending on like who you put the accountability with. So it's either the owners must deliver or SDs, sporting directors must deliver, because they've had their time. They spent a lot of money. And I think the fans were tired of waiting. Either you're going to do something great or you're not. And like, this is kind of it, this is the season to prove it.
I mean, I think all of ours were in a very similar vein. I went with defensive thesis, because I think you've put out a case for how you want to run a football organization, how you want to overhaul and take a organization that wasn't being run effectively well, and you need to get back into the Champions League. You need to be performing domestically. You need to show that you can have a manager who grows players into being better than they were previously. You also need, I know this is about the men's first team. You need to show that your academy program is going strong, that your women's team is continuing to evolve in a transitional period too. So there's a lot that this club has to get right across a lot of categories. And in season 1 and season 2, you could argue maybe it was a player conversation or a manager conversation. But now the sole responsibility is falling on the shoulders, as Brandon rightfully pointed, on the ownership and on the sporting directors. The people in charge are the ones who now, having had a chance to overhaul the squad, to put in their guy again, that this is their time. Defend the thesis.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you guys. I whatever happens this season, I do not put a huge percentage of the blame on the manager. I don't put a huge percentage of the blame on the physio staff. I don't put a huge percentage of the blame on the incredibly young players that have been thrown together in a melting pot to make this work. It's Clear Lake's calculated risks. That is my 3-word season preview. I put calculated in parentheses here because I'm not 100% sure which way it's going to go. It could still turn out to be incredibly savvy, or it could turn out to be a huge flaming disaster, and we don't have any clue as to where it's going to go. If we do finish between 7th and 10th again, though, their plan, their thesis, as Dan said, would have effectively been blown up very quickly in 3 seasons, and that is going to put the whole club in a world of hurt. So let's hope that they pull it off.
And it's self-inflicted. Like we're all on the same page here, right? Like
no one's made them do this.
Bowley's laid it out there. Bedard's laid it out there. I don't even remember. Feliciano's laid it out there. the sporting directors have laid it out there of what they want to do. So like, we are just taking in what they have said is the vision, the expectation. And we're just all going, wow, I feel a little underwhelmed right now. And so this is a great opportunity this season to turn it around. And again, I just think that a lot of it is even out of their hands. You know, we'll see. I don't know. We'll see. That set piece coach could be the difference.
Look, could be one of the most important signings we made all summer. But look, let us know your thoughts. What's your 3-word season prediction? Leave in the comments on YouTube. Email it to us, contact@londonsbluepodcast.com. You can hit us up on all the socials with it. Get involved on the YouTube. We're going to be, as we talked about at the top, going to be a lot of stuff there this season, extra videos, extra content. In a week plus a day's time, we'll be together, or at least Nick and I will be together in New York, taking in the Chelsea women's preseason match in New Jersey. So there's going to be some content from that coming up. Lots of exciting stuff. But that's going to do it for this
Jess
episode.
Carter just go to Gotham City too?
Yep.
Yes.
All right, friends.
Wish they're still on the team, but yeah, sure. Yeah.
Friends. But hopefully you're our friend, wonderful listeners. That's going to do it for this episode. So hope you are excited about the upcoming season, and hopefully we didn't trample over any joy you might have had heading into it, and Chelsea just do some crazy stuff this season and make us all super, super proud. And don't destroy all of our good predictions and shoo away all the bad ones we made. But that's going to do it for this episode. So until next time, Chelsea fans, do what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high.